In this video, we're going to have a look at the gradient of a straight line. The gradient of a line indicates how steep the line is. This is the ratio between the change in y values and the change in x values, with the change in y values in the numerator and the change in x values in the denominator. The symbol for gradient is an m. So, determining the gradient of our given straight line, we will have to focus on two of the points on the line and determine what the change in y value and change in x value from the one point to the other one is. The change in y values is how much you need to move up or down on the y-axis, and the change in x values is how much you move horizontally left or right to get from one point to another on the line. So if we focus on those first 2 points on the line, we need to change the y value from -2 to 0, which means our vertical movement is 2 units upwards. The change in x value is from -6 to 2, so our horizontal movement will be 4 units. So the gradient of this line is a half. But you could have also chosen to focus on any 2 points on this line. For example, if we were to focus on our first and last point, the change in y value will be from -2 to 3, so the vertical movement would be 5 units up. The change in x values will be from -6 to 4, so the horizontal movement is 10 units. So again, our simplified ratio is a half. So this line's gradient is a half. And this tells us that from any point on the line, if I move 1 unit vertically, I need to move 2 units horizontally to get back on my line again. And this can be repeated over and over again because this is one straight line. Or you could also choose to move 1 unit down and then also in the negative direction horizontally 2 units, which means our numerator and denominator should have minuses in them, which will simplified also give us the gradient of a half. Example: determine the gradient of each of the given straight lines. Let's start with the gradient of the orange line, line 1. We are given 2 points on this line, so firstly we need to calculate the change in y values from 3 to -1, and that is a movement downwards of 4, so the change will be -4. And the change in x value will be from -2 to 2, which is a positive movement of 4 units. So when simplified, this gradient is -1/1, or just -1. To calculate the gradient of our second blue line, I'm going to use a coordinate that wasn't clearly indicated, but we already know that the origin is 0, 0. So from this point where y is 0, we need to move up 4 units to get to a y of 4 units. And from here, where we have an x value of 0, we need to move 2 units horizontally. So the blue line's gradient is 2/1, which can be written as 2. Here we now have a horizontal and vertical line. Let's start determining the gradient of the horizontal line. For our change in y, you will see that we did not move up or down because we start with a y value of 2 and end on the same value. So the change in y is 0. The change in x is from -5 to 0, which is a change of 5 units. The gradient of the horizontal line is 0, and this will be true for any horizontal line. Next, if we calculate the gradient of our green vertical line, the change in y is from -2 to 3, which is 5 units upwards, and the horizontal change, left and right, in terms of x, is from 3 to 3, which means we moved 0 left and right. In mathematics, a 0 in the denominator is undefined. And for any vertical line, the gradient will always be undefined. Let's have a look at the influence of this m value on the straight line. We already know that the c value indicates the y-intercept, and making this value bigger will move this graph higher up. If the value is negative, the intersection will be lower on the y-axis. Next, let's have a look at the m value, which indicates the gradient. At the moment, the gradient is 1, and we already know that that means vertically 1 up, horizontally 1 to the right. If we increase this m value, the steepness of the line also increases. For example, now we have y is equal to 2x, and even bigger, we have y is equal to 4x. If this m value becomes smaller than 1, the steepness of the line decreases until it becomes 0 for a horizontal line, and then this gradient can become a negative value, which will give us a decreasing line from left to right. So to sum up, the gradient gives us the ratio between the change in y values and the change in x values. If the m value is positive, the line will move up from left to right and be increasing. And when the gradient or m value is negative, the line will move down from left to right to decrease.